I'm just about to interview Kyle Vucko of Indochino. If you like this interview, share it, and don't forget to comment. I'm Heather Ferguson, and you have found a Sonar moment.
I'm a hippie. Yeah. Corporate hippie.
We're aware of the risks, but we're willing to ignore them for the moment.
I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room.
That a complaint is actually a request.
It's the Sonar Moment, a monthly interview with CEOs from the Pacific Northwest. We're here at the beautiful Alex Goulden Hall in Victoria, Canada, and with me today is Kyle Vucko, CEO and founder of Indochino. Indochino is a company that makes custom suits and sells them online over the internet. And Kyle and his partner, Heikal Gani, have shaken up the world of men's fashion and, as you can see, not even 30 years old. So welcome, Kyle.
Hi.
So this is a beautiful, simple idea, really. Tell me about it.
Well, what can I tell you? I mean, it started from a simple concept, actually. My co-founder and I, both friends in college, needed a suit for a conference, never bought one before, and just found the process to be really tough. We did some research online. The stuff that we loved was really expensive, hard to get in Victoria. And what we ended up finding was the stuff that we could afford just wasn't a great experience. The retail experience was dated, the sizing wasn't great, the style wasn't there. So we felt that there was an opportunity to make it way easier for guys to go through this process of getting dressed. And we just went out and built a process that we felt spoke to guys. And that was Indochino.
Now, I want to give people an idea of the scale of this. So just tell me where you started in terms of sales the first year. Sure. And now we're, what are we, 6 years later?
5 years online. Yeah, 6 years for me. But.
Yeah, 5 years online. And so where did you start and where are you now? What was in your first year?
Well, I mean, so 2007, I mean, we sold a handful of garments, you know, and it was just my co-founder and I, so, you know, single garments a day.
Your dad bought one.
Well, he was the one that didn't. He was very supportive of me doing my own thing. So, but it was a lot of schlepping around and measuring people and trying to build up a business, and, you know, and it's evolved from the two of us to today. We have close to 100 staff between Vancouver and Shanghai, and we have now close to 130,000 customers in 130 countries. Oh, wow. So so we've grown very meaningfully. We've also taken investment along the way, and become a sizable business.
Tell me about the mentors you've had along the way.
I mean, it's been a story for me since day one. You know, I always looked for who was the smartest person I could get access to, and I've always just been an oral and kind of interactive learner. So started with the mentor program at the University of Victoria. When I came up with this idea, I was able to throw the idea off of a series of mentors here in Victoria, and I connected in particular with a few of those who actually ended up becoming my angel investors, and kind of continued to grow from there through, you know, a couple of rounds of funding, through our chairman, who's also an advisor of mine, and he you know, he was an early employee at Yahoo, rose to be president there, and I found that, I mean, you want to be successful, and you can look to certain people who have been successful. And generally, the most successful people do things differently from everybody else.
So one of your early investors was Jeff Mallett.
He was.
And when you talk about somebody doing something uniquely, tell me what was it that was so unique, you know, about Jeff? I mean, he's had a very successful career. Right. But you know, when you say that successful people do things uniquely, what exactly do you mean, and how was that for him?
Well, I mean, for him specifically, and I mean, I'm speaking for Jeff, so I don't know if this is exactly his story, but he has an amazing amount of energy and focus, and really follows, I think, is a motive center. You know, he's got a very clear passion on what he likes, what he wants to accomplish in the world, and it's infectious. Yeah. And so he is able to get a group together, to sell a vision, to really motivate a group of people to do something in a way that I've rarely seen anywhere else. And I think that's one of his, you know, really special strengths. You know, once he fixes his eyes on something, he's very determined, and you can see that throughout his life. I mean, he was an excellent sports player, and across multiple sports, a sports star at like the top of his class. He's always really pursued kind of excellence. Yeah. And you know, excellence, a lot of that's talent, but I've generally found that, like in the case of Jeff, I mean, naturally talented, of course, but you know, what I see with a lot of very successful people is really ongoing hard work and determination. And I think Jeff just has a level of drive that I haven't seen in many other people. And I've seen that, I mean, with Jeff and most of my other mentors, I mean, those are the people that I've aligned with, but generally the people I've seen who have been very successful just have a consistent set of, consistent drive over a very long period of time. And while it may not, I mean, for some it shows up right away, but for everybody it shows up eventually, but some people have to kind of be a little more determined a little longer than others.
You know, there's an article that's been going around recently around the internet around mentorship versus sponsorship. That mentors is fine, but what you really want is someone to sponsor you, to help you to move you, whatever your project is, forward.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I did think it was kind of an interesting concept. I mean, would you say that you've been able to find sponsors, people that have really helped you to move this project forward?
Very much. I mean, that's, I think, a huge part of kind of our success to date and my personal growth has been people who've been really invested in seeing the company succeed. And I mean, along with that, kind of a natural byproduct myself. And that's been in the form of, my initial angel investors, and then also my institutional investors. I've got some really smart people out of the US, out of Canada, actually out of Germany as well. And I mean, it helps that they're invested like with real money.
Yeah, that's nice, isn't it?
But no, I mean, I don't think I would have been able to accomplish nearly as much without them, just because they've seen so much. They've seen my situation or very similar situations in many other portfolio companies, and in many cases also just them going through similar growth curves in their own business.
What was it you think that they saw in you? Because it's a two-way street, right? They must have seen some kind of drive and determination and focus from you. How do you have a sense of that, or?
Yeah, I don't necessarily like to focus on myself too much.
Oh, come on, just for a second.
But no, I mean, there's, I think, generally when I look to my mentors and kind of what they have exuded, I think similarly you mirror that and you also want to be those people, so you're trying to aspire to be them. And I mean, very much there's an altruistic element in all of this. But I mean, generally I think people gravitate towards people who are very driven, very responsive, I guess similarly minded in terms of kind of their vision of what success looks like. And also, I mean, I think people generally gravitate towards big ideas, and I think, Indochino was a very big idea, and, around not just helping guys with suits, but helping guys get dressed. I mean, it's a problem every guy deals with, and I think people love the idea of solving really big problems, because there aren't a lot of companies solving huge problems.
You told me that you felt lucky to be CEO.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about that and why.
Well, it's a very rare place to get into and a very hard and rare place to hold on to for any amount of tenure. In my business, I mean, we've gone through so many different phases of growth, from 2 people to 100 very, very quickly, global. There's a lot of elements, and what makes you successful at $1 million company is very different from 10 and above. And, generally those require different people. And what I've been really lucky to do is, have been put in this position where I can see kind of what a CEO requires the whole way through, and also have, patient and very involved sponsors, mentors, who can help guide me through those steps of the process. Just because, I think it's rare to be put into a CEO spot in any one of those positions, let alone kind of go through the whole curve. So I've been very lucky for that, and to have kind of the advisement and the support to make sure that I stay successful there. Because the reality is, I may not always be successful in the CEO spot, and I'm working very hard and getting a lot of support to be successful, but it isn't always a given.
Yeah. They may kick you out at some point, like every other CEO on the face of the earth.
Or I self-select out. I think it's, I'm an investor and the CEO of the company, and so I wear both hats. And while I still very much believe today that I'm the right guy for the job, I don't know if that'll always be true. And I look outside to my advisors just as much to guide me on how to be successful in my role, and that can sometimes mean, how do I do a better job at my role versus, maybe there's a better role for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily opposed to those things, because when I put my investor hat on, I'm asking what's best for the company, which isn't purely me. So
there's a fairly famous book called, and I'm getting the title wrong, I can tell, about Fables of a CEO.
Oh,
Have
yeah.
you read it?
I am familiar with it. Was it the 5 Temptations of a CEO?
Five
maybe?
Temptations of a CEO.
Or
That's
something
it.
like that?
And there were all these little fables, and one of them talked about the importance of putting the company first.
Yeah, it's a tough challenge, you know, especially when you found something, at least in my case, because, you know, founding, it becomes your identity. All you do is talk to people about what you're doing, how you're doing it, and, you know, your public persona, and the media is all about that, so it becomes very much you and the company become very intertwined. You know, as we've gotten bigger and we've gotten kind of beyond 10 people to 100, you know, you start realizing that you have to decouple those two, you know, you become a professional executive and a professional CEO, and it's very different from being a founder.
And it's interesting that you have been able to decouple those, because, I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about founderitis and not being able to decouple those. And if the time comes, at any point in time, if the time comes, do you think you'll be able to walk the walk?
Of?
That you really will have decoupled?
Well,
or?
I mean, it's hard for me to say that without bias, that I'll ever be able to truly decouple both. But just because there's also, I mean, just the nature of the environment you're in is people see you as a founder, so they treat you differently, they listen to your words differently. So you have to be very conscious of all of those things. But no, I mean, I believe that I actively am already, and that I'm trying very hard too, because the reality is, you know, a very large company can't be run by a founder. I mean, they can be run by a CEO who is a founder, but I don't know if they can be run purely by a founder, because they're very different skill sets. Yeah, and one's a lot more personal than the other, and to your point around, you know, really doing what's best for the company, you know, that's stepping away from being a founder, and a lot of times. That's, yeah, ultimately the right thing to do, I think.
You're going to be a mentor to somebody else at some point. Maybe even now. Are you mentoring anybody now?
Nothing. I'm always very hesitant to do so. I feel like I've got a lot to learn still.
Yeah. You probably feel that way all your life.
Maybe.
I tell you honestly, Kyle, I'm sitting here listening to you and I'm thinking I have a lot to learn. But what sort of advice would you give to somebody in your position now?
Like somebody in my position, like exact position, or someone like previous?
Maybe who's founding a company, maybe going through the same things that you went through.
Yeah, you know, it's tough, because it's, you know, everything's very personal to the individual, and I think that's actually probably the biggest thing, is figuring out what's right for you. You know, I think founding a company is a ton of work, and you really want to be clear on the type of company you're founding and what really drives you from a motivation perspective. I mean, it's all really basic stuff, but finding answers to those individually is very hard. But once you start a path with a company, it's very hard to get off it. So whether it's raising money, bringing in a co-founder, bringing in other advisors and investors, all of those things are going to set the tone for your company for years to come. And generally speaking, a company will not be successful for years. So I think, you know, what I always caution people, and what I really think is important, is to be as clear as you can be on those things before you kick it all off, because, you know, you're really committing to 5 to 10 years of your life.
Kyle, this is fantastic. I'm so glad you were able to come in.
Great. Thanks so much.
Take care.